I've got some answers to questions about charity donations that you probably didn't even know you had. Hey everybody, it's me Margaret. I'm a Mississippi native transplanted to Atlanta, Georgia, where I sheepishly share things I love with you. And one of the things I really love is knitting and crocheting for charity. Now the tips that I'm going to share with you today are, yes, they're probably geared toward knitting and crochet donations, but they will also be helpful for any type of donations that you are making to charity. Now, besides the fact that that's primarily the only knitting and crochet I do, I have also worked a lot on the other end, like in the charities themselves. And so I do know a thing or two about what's accepted, what is wanted, why things are discarded, and different things like that. And that's what I want to share with you today. Now, the first thing I think that's important to bring up, and that's to tell you to donate through an organization or charity that you know. Now, these are usually people who know what's going on. They have experience in this field. They may even be experts, you know, with psychology, social work, things like that. I would never recommend that you just walk up to a random homeless person on the street and hand them your gift. While that sounds very loving and such a humanitarian choice, it can be actually very scary for a person who is on the street. Oftentimes, these people have mental challenges, and there's no way to tell by looking at the outside of a person if you're going to frighten them or not. And then, of course, the obvious, maybe it could be a danger to you. Regardless, it's best to go through an organization that you know. Now, once you choose your charity or organization, then you want to contact them and ask them, do they have any kinds of rules, any guidelines that you need to follow? Now, this might entail sizes that they need, types of yarn that are allowed, and color preferences. It's very important to find out what sizes they need, and the reason why is because they don't have, generally speaking, the luxury of lots of room and storage areas. So what you need to do is find out. Now, usually, I know we love to crochet and knit those little baby hats or whatever, but usually those are the ones that fill up fast, that fill up the quickest, because kids tend to outgrow their stuff and it's still in really good condition. So find out and say, what sizes do you need most? And then you want to move on to any restrictions about yarn. Now, generally speaking, yarn can be put into two categories, and that would be man-made fibers and natural fibers. We could refine that even more and say acrylic and wool are generally the two basic ones that have rules or guidelines around them. Sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, we take everything, and sometimes they'll say absolutely no wool, and sometimes they'll say absolutely no acrylic, and they'll have their reasons why. Of course, they'll tell you if you ask. Now, wool is a fantastic fiber, and I think we as knitters and crocheters understand this. Wool, first of all, has great recovery, that meaning you can stretch it out, and when you take your hands away and let it go back, it will go back into its original size and shape. Wool is also very durable, which of course is something that you want, and then it's also insulating. Wool is actually a tube almost, the wool fiber itself, even before it's spun, like when it comes off of the sheep. It's actually shaped like a little tube, which means that you have lots of air pockets in there. So it's a terrific insulator. And to make it even better, it still insulates even when it's wet. In other words, a lot of materials you get wet and you put them on and it makes you colder. It doesn't keep the body heat in, but not the case with wool. It's also fire resistant. Now, I know that might sound silly to those of us who knit and crochet, because we do the flame test, the burn test, where you take, say, an acrylic fiber and you can hold it over the flame of a candle and it will just sort of melt. That's how you know it's man-made. But if you hold a natural fiber over a flame, it will catch fire. Now, when we say it's fire resistant, we're talking about the fact that it doesn't just grow into massive flames like, say, cottonwood. Wool will burn for a little while, then it will burn out. out if you do not keep the wool immediately over in that flame. Now, wool is also water resistant, meaning, well, yes, of course you could submerge it in water and it would totally get saturated, but when you're wearing it as a hat and you get caught in the rain, it will bead up. The rain will bead up and kind of fall, roll off until a certain point. So in other words, what it does is it gives you longer to be dry when it's raining and you're wearing wool. And then, of course, it's a renewable, sustainable substance, which is terrific. We're not chopping down any trees. We're not harming anything. We shave it off the sheep and the sheep grows more. Now, there are some negatives to wool, and one is skin sensitivity. Sometimes a wool is scratchy, depending on, what type it is and, how sensitive you are to it. Another thing is that you may have a full-out allergy to it. And I used to think it was the fiber itself, but what it is the little oils that are in the wool that help make it up. And they don't wash out, as a matter of fact. And that's where the allergy, the true allergy, comes into play. Skin sensitivity, you might get red and just feel uncomfortable. Allergy, you'll get a rash or whatever. So those are big concerns. Now, the washability of wool is something else that we need to consider. Usually with wool, we hand wash it. We dry it flat. Yes, there are superwash wools and we can toss those in the washer, but we still don't need to be putting them in the dryer. Now, the problem where this arises is that when a person goes into a homeless shelter to spend the night, they can get their clothes washed, and generally the workers will pick up all their clothes and throw them in a washer, a lot of times on hot water, trying to make sure that we're getting all the oils and killing all the critters and doing whatever. And in that case, there's just no time in order to hand wash and lay out the clothes, dry flat, block it. Nobody's going to be doing that. So that's another consideration. Now, a charity may prefer acrylic because of its benefits. Now, first of all, it does have adequate recovery. The stretching and going back into shape and all that. Acrylic is great for that. And there are different types of acrylic, of course. Some seem better than others, but that's true of everything, right? Acrylic is certainly durable. It's plastic. It's a type of plastic, really and truly. So, yeah, that's durable. It's warm, but it's lightweight, so you don't have to have a whole lot of bulk to keep the warmth in. And as charity knitters and crocheters know, it's inexpensive, so the more you can buy, the more you can make. And there's no argument that acrylic is easy care. You literally can toss it in the washer, toss it in the dryer, and it comes out fantastic. Everything actually comes out better because it gets softer. It can also take high temperatures of the water, high temperatures in the dryer. It can also even take bleach without even changing its color, which is pretty amazing. And last, and certainly not least, it's considered hypoallergenic, so there you go. Now, there are bad things about acrylic, and one thing is that it's unbreathable, for lack of a better term. For instance, when you put it on, it keeps your head very warm because it doesn't allow the body heat to escape. Now, this is good unless, of course, you might be working outside and you may be sweating while you're working, in which case there's no place for that moisture to go, and that could be a problem. Another bad thing about acrylic is that when it gets wet, then you get cold. So if you're outside wearing a hat, it gets sopping wet, it's not doing you any good. You might as well take it off. It's actually making things worse. And probably one of the scariest things is, remember, acrylic will melt near a flame. So anybody that's working in a high heat situation or whatever, they definitely don't want to be wearing acrylic because that would be horrible to melt on the skin. And then there's color. Generally speaking, all colors are welcome. But depending upon where you live, depending upon what organization you're giving to, there may be an issue with color because of gang-related colors. If your charity is located in a part of town where there is a lot of gang violence, or maybe one or two gangs in particular, and you may want to avoid a certain color, so you'll ask, are all colors welcome? Color could also be a cultural thing. For example, in some cultures, you would never put black on a child. That's supposed to be condemning them to death, so to speak. I don't know. There's various reasons in different cultures that have different things. The charity that you're donating to will know if there's anything to be aware of. And now let's talk about color in relation to gender. All right, this is 2018 when I'm filming this, and we are throwing those notions out the door. All genders, like all colors. Whether you're straight, whether you're gay, whether you're trans, whether you're whatever, that's just the case. Especially now that we have so many colors associated with different things that we want to support. For example, pink is the color of breast cancer support. So you'll see pink on a football field, on the golf course, on men, women, everything. So just throw that whole thing about gender and color right out the window. Now, that's not to say that you cannot argue the fact that for the most part, men will pick the darker, more neutral colors. It's a fact. There are men who do choose the lighter, brighter colors. That's great too. So you may find that your charity will say, I need size large hats for men, and can you do a lot of darker colors? That's what they want. Your charity will know if that's an issue or not. But don't make the mistake of saying to yourself, okay, all my large hats need to be in these colors because they're going to men. And no, because they're not all going to men, as a matter of fact. Everybody has different size heads, right? And remember, we're throwing out the whole idea of gender colors. That's just irrelevant these days. But what if you have somebody with dreadlocks, for example, or just really thick hair? Those people are definitely going to need a large size hat. So when you're making your hats, make them all sizes, all colors, unless your organization tells you differently. Now, another thing that I need to bring up, and that is the quality of your work. Once I was given the task of sorting the donations that were coming in, and it was a bunch of clothes and stuff. And I would pull out, first of all, you have this bag, and people just clean out their closet and they just throw their stuff in there, almost like it's garbage or something. They don't even take the time to fold it. So you're pulling the things out, and you have to check them, and you have to make sure that there's no holes in the seat. And yes, I know that it's the style now to have, holes in your knees and all that kind of stuff, but you really they don't allow, where we were, holes in the seat of the pants. Pull out the next thing. It's a t-shirt. It's stained. It's ripped. I mean, who wants to wear that? Nobody wants to walk around with your stains all over their clothes. So save your old torn, stained t-shirts or whatever and clean the house with those. Now, anything that you're going to knit, crochet, sew, whatever, finish it. Have it blocked. Make it look nice, because essentially what you're doing is giving a gift. And you wouldn't give a gift of your junk to someone, right? You want to give a nice gift. So make sure all your ends are sewn in if you're knitting and crochet, and look at it. I mean, if it has a small mistake, somewhere in the back, don't worry about that. Well, nobody's expecting perfection. But if it's really poorly done and it's something that you would not wear out of the house, then don't put it in your donate bag. You're giving gifts. You're not giving away trash. It's not something, well, I don't want this, I'll just give it to somebody else. That's the wrong attitude. So keep that in mind when you're making your choices. The best thing about yarn is if it didn't come out the way you think is suitable, yarn can be reused. You had the enjoyment of making it the first time. Well, now have some more enjoyment remaking it and having it in something that you'd be proud to give away. Another important thing is you really need to wash your stuff before it's donated. And the reason why I tell you to do this, whether this is clothes or your knit, your crochet or whatever, is for several reasons. One, you're going to soften it up a little bit. And that's good, especially if you're using acrylics. Number 2, you're going to get rid of any kind of possible allergens that may be in your house. Now in my house it would be dog and cat hair. We want to rid the dander. We don't want any of that dander that's in the, I mean, I could literally pick off some hair, yeah, but I'm not getting rid of the dander, which is what the allergens are actually. They need to be washed and dried if it's acrylic, for sure. If you smoke, then it's extra important for you to put those in the washer and dryer, and then what you need to do is bag them up and put them away from your smoking area. If you smoke inside your house, get it out of the house, because even though it's in the bag, it can still pick up the smoke. And ask me how I know this. My mother smoked my whole life. I know all about what smoke can do. As a matter of fact, there is furniture in my house that, although it has been cleaned professionally, wood furniture, you know, I still smell the smoke in there. So be aware that even though you are a smoker and you don't think it smells like smoke, those of us who do not smoke are very sensitive to it. So bag it up and put it away from wherever it is you smoke. Now, I've had some people argue with me about washing before donating. Sometimes they say, well, it doesn't look new, then it looks used. Not if you take it out and block it. And I've shown, I have a video about washing your acrylic, softening acrylic yarn, and the way I do it. Take it out of the dryer immediately and then put it in its proper, you block it, so to speak, while it's still warm. And I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Remember that acrylic does not change color, it does not fade or anything when you wash it. So keep that in mind. You may have some little halos depending upon the yarn that you make, but then again, fine yarn often has some halos too, so it just kind of makes it look a little bit more rich. Other people have said things like, yeah, but what if people are allergic to fabric softeners or detergents or something like that? Then I'm adding allergens. Maybe. We can't know every individual's problems or issues that we need to address. If it's in a homeless shelter, generally speaking, I have never seen anybody who has a special problem with that. Their problems are generally a lot greater than a little detergent sensitivity. I think when you're making the decision on whether or not to donate something, you could ask the question, would anybody in my family wear this? Now, I'm not talking about styles. I'm talking about, is it quality that you would put your family in? If it's not, then you probably don't need to be donating it. That would not be a gift. So you know you want to be a charity knitter or crocheter, but you just need some suggestions. Where should I donate? Well, you'll have to make the decision first of all if you're willing to spend some money on shipping, because there are plenty of things. I'll give you some links in the description box below. There are plenty of things that you can give to now nationally, and I'm talking about America. I know most about what's going on in the United States. However, I'm going to open this up to you guys. If you are not from the United States, well, even if you are from the United States, put your suggestions below. But if you are not from the United States, indicate what country your suggestions are for. And that will help some people with some ideas. Now, what if you don't want to spend that money on shipping? And I understand, because it could be really expensive, and yet you still have this heart for missions in third world countries. I mean, these people really have nothing. Well, my best suggestion is to contact a church or synagogue or someplace like that, place of worship, because they will take mission trips on a regular basis down to help these people. Now, it may be for medical missions, it may be for helping them set up schools, building houses. It doesn't matter what the purpose is. They will be taking big shipments down there of whatever it is they need, and they might be willing or need to take things like hats. So, or scarves or whatever they may be needing. So you could simply pick up the telephone and call. Nobody is going to demand that you attend this church or synagogue or whatever. They are all happy to receive your donations and are grateful. If they have the room, because again, it costs to ship this stuff down there, to take it down there with them. But you just never know. There may be somebody willing to stuff some things in their suitcase or whatever. But again, they might be putting medical supplies, bandages, school supplies in their suitcases as well. So don't get your feelings hurt if they can't do it. But it's certainly worth calling. If they can't, hang up the phone and call somebody else. And then they're just local homeless shelters. Get on Google, search your city or your metro area or whatever, and you can find places that help. If you are in a small community, you can call social workers. So look that up to see who needs what. Food banks or soup kitchens or anything like that will know. And as a matter of fact, they get to know the people that come and frequent their establishments. They'll know them by name, and they will know some of the things that they would need, these individuals need specifically. It's great to have that they have friends in these organizations that can look after them and say, yes, can you make a black hat for Mr. Johnson? He really wants a black hat. I love it when people take a personal interest like that. And still, you can call the churches for ideas of who to help locally as well. A lot of times they will have families that they have adopted that they are helping get back on their feet. Or they just support a certain mission on a regular basis. But if I was not a church goer, I wouldn't hesitate to pick up the phone and call any church and say, look, this is what I do. I'm looking for somebody to give it to. Can you make any suggestions? They may even give you a phone number for you to call the charity directly, or they may take them themselves and say, I'll be happy to distribute these for you. Thank you so much. Can you make some more? You just never know who you're going to meet. So start Googling. Now, time of year is another consideration for knitted and crocheted items. Of course, those are generally for cold weather. Now, most of the places that you'll be donating to will not have the storage area to take the supplies right now. That doesn't mean they don't want them or they don't value your efforts. It just is not practical for them to take things because it's more convenient for you. Why don't you just... This is what I do, is I just knit them up. I never stop all year round because I love to do it. And then what I do is I'll wash it. When I get a whole big load full, then I will wash that load by itself, dry it by itself. And then when I'm taking it out of the dryer, I'm putting it into a plastic bag nicely and neatly so that it holds its shape. I don't want any old wrinkly looking hats that are going in like that. And then I just keep them until the weather begins to cool down. You'll also find that time of year consideration to be very important in any kind of clothes donations, as a matter of fact, because of the storage. So you'll see where they'll post and they'll say now accepting summer clothes or winter clothes or whatever, so that you'll know when to bring your donations. Now you'll notice I keep mentioning hats and scarves. There are plenty of other things that people want knitted and crocheted. For example, there are organizations that love blankets. There are organizations that like knitted or crocheted toys of any kind. The amigurumi, maybe a stuffed bear to hug. Shelters for women of domestic violence are in great need for things like that, because oftentimes these women show up at the door at odd hours with nothing but the clothes on their back and probably a child or two in tow, and so they'll need just about everything. And don't forget those who may have lost a breast due to cancer. There's this silly name, it's called knitted knockers, and they have special patterns that you follow, and you have to use special yarn. But what it is a lightweight, breathable. We've already talked about wool and how it has its breathability. They're light, they're breathable, they're so much more comfortable than those silicone things that is the norm. They have an important rule that only knockers made from these approved patterns and approved yarns will be used for distribution, but there are lots of choices. There are crochet and loom knit patterns and every version of knitting that you can imagine for DPNs, magic loop, knitted, flat, and seamed, and there's video tutorials too. The link to their website is included in the master list that I'm providing in the description box below. I almost forgot about this one, and if you're looking for something really fun, how about the Magic Yarn Project? They make fun wigs for little cancer patients. Now they have strict guidelines too, and plenty of variety in patterns, both crochet and knit, but there are other ways to be involved here too. If you like paper crafting, they need decorated envelopes. And there are people who make the hair accessories that go, on the wigs themselves. Lots of stuff to do. So I'm going to send you to their website to look that over. So like I said, I'm going to list some suggestions in the description box below. I'm asking any viewers of this video to put their favorite charities down below as well. Let's learn from each other on this. I hope I shed a little light from the charities perspective on this thing. If you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.